test.
Yes, good morning, everyone. The Honorable Premier will make his presentation, and following which members of the media will be invited to ask questions. But then the Premier is taller that once I
brought it
move,
forward.
he normally does, okay,
Yes, I can see.
all right. So that's it, we're ready? And the Premier is on his way. Any moment, once he arrives, we stand, welcome him, and we begin. Ready? By the way, tape is not rolling, is it? Good morning, sir. Yes, he'll be here at any moment. If I stand back, can you still hear me perfectly? If I stand back, you're still hearing me? Okay.
Yeah, you hear me, right? Okay, let me push out this one.
Okay, so we're ready. Good morning, everyone. Kindly rise, please. Good morning. Yes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to members of the media. And we welcome all to the February 2023 edition of the Premier's Monthly Press Conference. Today, Tuesday, the 28th of February, 2023. And we also bid welcome to all who are joining us via electronic media. This series forms part of the commitment of the Nevis Island administration to be open, transparent, and accountable. Before we begin, you are kindly asked to place all of your phones on silent or vibrate for the duration of the session. Today's press conference will proceed as follows. The Honorable Premier will make his presentation, following which members of the media will be invited to ask questions. When doing so, please provide your name and the name of the organization that you represent in order to facilitate any follow-up to your questions where necessary. And thirdly, we do ask that you refrain from providing editorials when raising your questions. And thank you very much for your cooperation. And without any further ado, please welcome to the podium the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley, the Premier of Nevis. Mr. Premier, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Assistant Secretary, and good morning to members of the press. Good morning to those who are viewing and listening, and welcome to the February edition of the Premier's press conference. As always, I'm delighted to be here to share with you developments over the course of the past month. And as you would have heard, this is another effort on our part to demonstrate openness and transparency, and for the government's policies and programs, not only to inform you, but also for you to be able to question and seek clarification where necessary. As I tend to do at these press conferences, let me start by congratulating a few people. Let me start by congratulating Her Excellency Dame Marcella Liebert, who has now assumed the role of our Governor General and our first female Governor General of St. Kitts and Nevis. She was sworn in on Wednesday, the 1st of February, 2023. I extend heartiest congratulations to Her Excellency, Dame Marcella Liebert. She's someone I know well. In fact, we would have attended law school together. And so I wish her all the very best in her new role as Governor General, the highest office in our Federation. Let me also, at this time, extend warm congratulations to Police Commissioner, our new Police Commissioner, Mr. James Sutton, who was installed in a ceremony held at Warner Park on Thursday, the 23rd of February, 2023. I feel particularly pleased at this appointment because, of course, Mr. Sutton's last sojourn was here as the Superintendent in charge of Division C, which is the Nevis Division of the Police Force. And so he is the second Commissioner who would have served here as the officer in charge. And we wish Mr. Sutton all the very best as he now moves forward. And of course, as I always say, when the police do a good job, then all of us benefit. And so we wish Mr. James Sutton all the best in his new role. I'm particularly pleased that he served in Nevis, so he would understand the needs of the island of Nevis, and look forward certainly to working closely with him. Along the same lines, in terms of congratulatory remarks, I have been informed that my very good friend Alva David from Craddock Road, he has been promoted to head golf professional in the United States. He's the first and only PGA member from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so Alva David, who started out here at the Four Seasons and started playing golf at the Four Seasons, he's now in the United States. He's just been promoted to head golf professional, and he's the only PGA member from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I think that is something that we can all be proud of, and I extend warmest congratulations to my good friend Alva David on his ascension to this position, and wish him continued success. It is my hope that it is not too late, that at one point we will see him on a PGA Tour. Let me just give now some quick updates from the various ministries. From Public Works, I want to advise that the full complement of Public Works workers have now returned to work and obviously are back out doing what they need to do. Members of the public would have noticed that we have, because of the rains, some potholes that have developed in some of the roads, and I've heard the complaints. I myself have complained to the Minister of Works. Well, the problem really is due in large measure to the fact that we had a fire at our asphalt plant, which destroyed critical components of the asphalt plant. We have put out a press release on that to explain that circumstance. The result of that was that it has proven difficult for us to get the asphalt that we need in order to effect repairs across the island. I can report this morning that repairs to the outer insulation of the asphalt plant, bitumen storage and heating tank, that those repairs have now been completed. The outer insulation skin of the tank sustained damage due to fire back in late December 2022. Other components of the asphalt plant also sustained damage in the fire, and orders have been placed to replace those parts. We are waiting on the manufacturer to complete the orders for a control panel, wiring and replacement motors for the heating system, all of which were destroyed in that unfortunate fire. In the meantime, until the new parts arrive, we have been able to perform some repairs on the heating system. A heating system was configured to deal with the mixing of 300 tons of hot mix asphalt on Saturday the 18th of February. That was used to pave the island main road from Cliff Dwellers to the Jones Estate area. The heating tank was being heated over the past weekend, in which the expectation is to produce some asphalt for patching for Monday of this week. So, notwithstanding the difficulties, we are trying to do a workaround while we wait for these parts. And just so the public understands, I'm told that these parts are not parts that are readily available on the shelf. It's things that you need to order from the manufacturer, so there's some lag time. We also are to report that some rehabilitation road work is being undertaken at the intersection of the High School Road and the Island Main Road. The catalyst for that work was to improve the left turning maneuverability at the intersection by opening the left curb turning and reconstructing the swale and curbs at that location. Works on the Bath Village Road project have resumed as of last week. I want to use this rostrum to apologize to the people of Bath and to thank them for their patience. Now that we're there, we will have that project completed as well as the additional works that are anticipated. Work on the pedestrian path and footbridge in Brickhill continues and should come to a close this week. The gut from the main road was lined on both sides with boulders, and approximately 160 feet of concrete steps and walkways were constructed from the Island Main Road to the bridge and onto the village road by the bakery. If I can switch to the Nevis Disaster Management Department and to report that Mr. Shinichi Sakuma, project officer at the Embassy of Japan, would have visited Nevis on Friday the 17th of February. His mission was to inspect projects on Nevis that was supported by the Japan Grassroots Funding Program from 2016, 2019, and 2020, those fiscal years. Mr. Sakuma would have visited the Ministry of Health at the Alexandra Hospital and the Nevis Disaster Management Department project sites. These included 10 community centers which were renovated in 2017, rock revetment in Stony Grove, and a retaining wall at Fenton Hill. He would also have visited the newly constructed bridge and access road near the Girls Guide Building and Sixth Form College. Mr. Sakuma was very impressed with the maximization of use of the Japan funding, the partnership with the NIA, the professional approach in project management, and especially the maintenance program for the upkeep of the community centers. We extend, of course, special thanks to the various departments, Department of Community Development, Ministry of Communications, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, the Public Works Department, the Nevis Disaster Management Department, Carlos Construction and Best Deal Construction, who are the private contractors who did some of the works involved. Let me switch now to tourism. The Nevisian Heritage Village will be celebrating its 20th anniversary on Friday the 3rd of March. That's this Friday. Celebrations will commence at 10 a.m. with a short ceremony and cultural presentations. A new restaurant called the Heritage Cafe, managed by Mrs. Sophia Wallace, will officially open on Friday at the Heritage Village, and will serve a wide variety of traditional dishes. Other food vendors will also be available on that day. The Heritage Village also has a new gift shop operated by a Miss Denver Jones, which also starts operations officially on Friday. The general public is invited to the New Vision Heritage Village on Friday as we celebrate this significant milestone of 20 years of that Heritage Village being there. Yet another significant memory, if you will, and monument to the memory of the late great Malcolm Guichard. It was his brainchild, the Heritage Village, and 20 years later, we're celebrating its 20th anniversary. I'm particularly pleased that the new restaurant is going to be open there and a new gift shop, and commend local entrepreneurs, Mrs. Sophia Wallace and Mrs. Denver Jones, both of whom have stepped forward to manage those small businesses. And I expect and ask, of course, our public to support them. In terms of airlift, I'm pleased to report that as scheduled, direct service between St. Thomas, USVI, and Nevis commenced on Cape Air on the 15th of February. They will do 1 flight per day and 2 flights on Sundays. Early indications are that demand for the service is strong. Bookings thus far have been good. And Cape Air, as we know, has excellent connections via St. Thomas through major U.S. carriers such as American, JetBlue, United, and Delta. Put differently, if you're traveling with American, JetBlue, United, or Delta, you can book via Cape Air from Nevis to St. Thomas and then onwards to the United States. Residents of St. Kitts and Nevis also now have another airlift option. Inter-Caribbean Airways has announced that it will now offer non-stop services from St. Kitts to Barbados. The St. Kitts to Barbados flight will operate 3 times a week, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Additionally, the Barbados service offers one-stop connecting flights to Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Dominica, and Georgetown, Guyana. Service between RLB and St. Kitts and Barbados' Brantley Adams International Airport is scheduled to commence on Sunday, 12 March 2023. An Embraer 120 aircraft with a seating capacity of 30 will service St. Kitts from Barbados 3 times weekly, as I've indicated. This is certainly welcome news in light of the recent challenges faced by regional passengers attempting to get from one island to another, especially during and following the COVID-19 pandemic. It is good news for us as locals, but I know it is also great news for all of our regional brothers and sisters who live here, particularly our brothers and sisters from Guyana, who have been expressing grave concerns about how they can get home to Guyana to see loved ones. And so now, with this service commencing on the 12th of March, we'll have service direct to Barbados and from Barbados onwards to Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Dominica, and Georgetown, Guyana. Let me take the opportunity to commend Minister Marsha Henderson, forgive me, how am I getting her name wrong? Minister of Tourism and Transport, Marsha Henderson, the Honorable Marsha Henderson. I think that this is a significant feather in her cap that she has been able to secure this route, and I look forward to that route not only being put to good use by our people, but potentially expanding and, in the fullness of time, coming to Nevis as well. On the Pianins Beach Enhancement Project, a project that we're very proud of, I'm here to say that work is progressing smoothly on that project. Some clearing and land leveling have taken place in preparation for the construction of certain components of the project, which include a boardwalk from the amphitheater, current amphitheater at Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park, to the beach, parking lots, construction of a retaining wall along the gut as a flood control mechanism, and the restoration of a historic water catchment structure in what we call shallow gut. The project is expected to last about 16 months. It commenced since December last year. This is a further component of the Pinis Park project, and when it is done, we will see the entire beach area of Pinis transformed. We are putting in bathrooms, a boardwalk, we're putting in proper parking, clearly some landscaping, proper drainage, and lighting, security. We're ensuring that we have a first-class venue at the Pinis, at the Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park, and now at the Pinis beachfront as well for our people. We have added restaurants. We have new restaurants that will be opened shortly. And so we expect that that will become a magnet for entertainment, for dining, for families and others to go out and enjoy themselves here on the island of Nevis. Ladies and gentlemen, I think those who know me know that I'm very big on scholarships and making training opportunities available to our people. And I'm very pleased to announce that the Nevis Tourism Authority is offering a scholarship to a qualified individual with a passion for the culinary arts for an opportunity to pursue a 10-week course in plant-based cooking and nutrition in the United Kingdom at Leeds School of Food and Wine. The scholarship will cover airfare, tuition, room and board, and living expenses. So it's pretty all-inclusive. The course will run from April 19th to June 29, 2023. The applicant must be a resident of the island of Nevis. It must be employed within the culinary or hospitality industry for at least 5 years. Persons have until Monday, 6 March to apply. For more information, kindly contact the Nevis Tourism Authority on 469-7550. So the Nevis Tourism Authority is offering a all expenses paid full scholarship for a 10-week course in plant-based cooking and nutrition in the United Kingdom at Leeds School of Food and Wine. And so we're asking those interested to apply on or before March 6th at the NTA. You can call them at 469-7550. And again, very proud that we can offer that. And culinary, of course, is a critical part of our tourism industry, our tourism product. And so we invite all those chefs and others out there to take advantage of this opportunity and to apply for that possibility of 10-week training in the United Kingdom. If I can switch now to the Department of Education. The Department of Education hosted its Black History Elocution Contest on February 25th, 2023. And for that event, they chose to pay homage to local Nevisian Calypsonians under the theme Calypso Culture. The competition was held among the 10 primary schools and the 3 high schools on Nevis. The pieces that were recited by the students were adopted from calypsos that were previously performed by King Astro, King Miko, King Bingi, King This and That, King Flamingo, Ginger, and Chaplet. There was an individual speaking round and a choral speaking round for the primary schools, and an individual speaking round for the high schools. The winners for the night were as follows. Primary schools, individual speaking round, Charlestown Primary School. Choral speaking round, St. Thomas's Primary School. Overall primary school winners, first place, Charlestown Primary School. Second place, St. Thomas's Primary School. Third place, Violet O. Jeffers Nichols Primary School. At the secondary school level, the individual speaking round was won by the Charlestown Secondary School. The Department of Education intends to make this an annual event on the school calendar. I extend congratulations to all of the schools for participating, and special commendations, of course, to those who would have placed in the top 3. Thank you and commendations to all the principals, teachers, members of the community for preparing and supporting the students, and of course, congratulations to our students who performed admirably. We also had the Ginseng Up Classics meet. The 2 public secondary schools in Nevis, that is the CSS and GSS, would have participated in this inaugural Ginseng Up Classics meet that was held at the Kim Collins Stadium in St. Kitts on Sunday the 26th of February. Gingerland Secondary journeyed to St. Kitts with 34 athletes, and Charlestown Secondary journeyed to St. Kitts with 25 athletes. At the end of the event, Charlestown Secondary School emerged as the champions. They attained 10 golds, 7 silvers, and 1 bronze medal. Gingerland Secondary attained 6 golds, 1 silver, and 10 bronze medals. 3 divisions received class champions. Kylan Prentice from the Gingerland Secondary School, she was a class champion for the under 14 females. Sion Gishard of the Charlestown Secondary School was class champion for the under 16 males. And Kalia Jones of the Charlestown Secondary School was class champion for the under 18 females. We congratulate all of our students, their coaches, teachers, and other supporters on the excellent display of athleticism at that meet, and single out, of course, my alma mater, the Charleston Secondary School, for their phenomenal achievement in winning the Ginseng Up Classics meet on St. Kitts. I'm told that the big athletic school in Sandy Point, what's it called? Mills, Charles E. Mills, that they were not part of the competition. So somebody said that we can't get total bragging rights just yet. But I'm nevertheless happy that CSS would have gone to St. Kitts and dominated as it did. And congratulations to them and all the hard work that they continue to do. A brief note from the Ministry of Agriculture. They are pleased to announce that Mr. Colin Huggins, a fisherman, well-known fisherman from Bat Village, he is the 2023 patron for the Agri Expo. The Agri Expo, we used to call it, I think, the Agricultural Fair. That's what we used to call it. Anyway, it has expanded now to an expo. The event is to be hosted on 30th and 31st of March 2023 at the ETW Park from 9 a.m. daily. The theme is Together for Food Sovereignty, Agri Expo 23. Plans are already well advanced to put on an exceptional showcase for local produce as well as for the various stakeholders. All are invited to 2 days of excitement and entertainment. Let me now go to the all-important Ministry of Health. In the observance of World Obesity Day, which is recognized on the 4th of March annually, the Health Promotion Unit's upcoming activity, dubbed Fun Run in the Sun, is slated for March 3rd, 2023, starting at 2 p.m. in Charlestown. Registration is open for businesses, offices, and departments. Interested teams of 5 are asked to register at the unit or call 469-5521, extension 6396 for more information. In the fight to reduce the growing trend of non-communicable diseases, the Ministry of Health and the Health Promotion Unit Nutrition Surveillance Program, in collaboration with our dear friends from Taiwan, the ICDF, launched our virtual nutrition program on February 16. The program utilizes a WhatsApp mobile-based media platform which facilitates interaction of persons living with NCDs and a team consisting of nutritionists, health educators, and other stakeholders who provide group activities, education materials, photos, and posts to encourage healthy eating and healthy lifestyle changes. The program will run for 8 weeks. The Gender Affairs Department is inviting submissions for its logo competition. The logo should depict the work of the department, which is to strive for gender equality. The competition is open to all citizens and residents. The deadline is March 31st, 2023. The winner will receive a cash prize of $500. The month of March will be celebrated as International Women's Month, and the Gender Affairs Department is encouraging everyone to be part of its month-long activities. The theme for this year is Digit All, Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. International Women's Day is celebrated on March 8th, and the general public is asked to wear purple on that day in support of our women. The department is also inviting, and this is important, we're also inviting nominees for its International Women's Day Awards ceremony to be held on March 25th. The areas of recognition are women in science, digital economy, blue economy, green economy, orange economy, and women in non-traditional roles. For more information, please contact the department or visit them on Government Road, upstairs the GMBC building, 469-5521, extension 6750. A bit of good news, that after receiving life-saving care and support from the staff at our Alexandria Hospital, a grateful patient returned to thank the staff and made a sizable donation of US $1,000 to the facility to further assist in the delivery of care on the island. The management and staff of the hospital want to place on record their profound thanks for this very generous contribution. And I like that because here's somebody giving back. Oftentimes we hear a lot of criticisms leveled at the Alexandria Hospital. Here it is at somebody who was at Alexandria had life-saving procedures done there and is saying thank you with a check of $1,000 US. We say thank you to them. Ladies and gentlemen, as I'm here speaking, today is the National Day of Prayer. And so at our churches, we are asking persons to spend some time today with God, spend some time today in prayer. The idea really is that we are allowed to go into any church and to pray individually or collectively, as is our desire. I'm told that on radio there will be every hour also prayers that have been pre-recorded by various ministers around the Federation. And then this evening, commencing at 7 p.m., there'll be a prayer and worship service at the church right there in Bath, the New Testament church in Bath. And we ask all those who can attend, please, to do so. So throughout the day today, please make some time. Please visit the churches. Please spend a few moments in prayer. We have a lot to be thankful for. Let me move lastly to the matter that captivated the attention of the nation yesterday, which was a decision by the judge of the High Court, resident here in Nevis, Mr. Justice Thompson, Jr., and Mr. Justice Thompson, Jr. would have ruled yesterday on this issue of whether or not the election petitions that had been filed by losing candidates of the NRP, Dr. Patricia Bartlett and Ms. J.D. Keynes, whether or not those petitions should have been struck out or whether they should have been permitted to continue to trial. The judge ruled that these petitions be struck out, and that brings an end, therefore, these election petitions that were brought by Dr. Bartlett and by Ms. Keynes. The judge also went further and ruled that they be ordered to pay costs. I think that some of it is quite instructive in terms of what the judge had to say. The judge would have, in a well-reasoned judgment, running some 12 or so pages, 10 pages, the judge would have set out initially, he dealt with, commencing at paragraph 5, the Keynes petition, that is a petition brought by J.D. Keynes. And the judge helpfully set out the calendar because it appears that there were some difficulties in counting the relevant days. And he says here at paragraph 12 of his judgment, this court finds that the Keynes petition was filed on January 10th, 2023, and not within the 21-day prescribed for doing so. The Keynes petition is thus a nullity and is struck out and dismissed. This court notes that no evidence was advanced by counsel for the petitioner Keynes to explain why their petition, by their own arithmetic, was filed on the last possible day for doing so. This court has no jurisdiction to extend the time for filing of an election petition, but in this court's view, it behooved the petitioner Keynes to proffer some explanation to the general public as to why their petition was filed so late. Election petitions are matters of significant public interest, and the fact that the Keynes petition was filed 4 days after the Bartlett petition has not escaped this court's attention, particularly since both petitioners appear to belong to the same political party. The Keynes petition, being filed at the 11th hour, ran the risk of succumbing to the respondent's challenge. Future election petitioners should do well to avoid this risk by filing as soon as is reasonably practicable. He then went on from paragraph 14 to deal separately with the Bartlett petition. At paragraph 17, the learned judge says this: everyone is agreed that while the petitioner, Dr. Bartlett, did serve the respondents with a copy of the petition, the respondents were not personally served with a notice of presentation of the petition, since a copy of this notice was filed on the e-portal, that is the court's e-portal, on January 19th, 2023. Everyone was agreed, including counsel for Dr. Bartlett, that the failure to strictly comply with the requirements of the Act and election rules meant that the court's jurisdiction to strike out a petition was engaged. He continues at paragraph 20. Counsel for the petitioner, Dr. Bartlett, conceded, albeit with some reluctance, that there was no physical service of the notice of presentation of the petition, nor of the notice of security. Furthermore, counsel accepted the authorities confirmed that the requirement for service was mandatory and peremptory, and that non-compliance with these requirements meant that Dr. Bartlett's petition was liable to be struck out if non-compliance was proved. In this court's view, counsel's tacit concession puts an end to any argument by Dr. Bartlett to the contrary. The failure to physically serve the notice of presentation of petition and the notice of security is fatal to the validity of the Bartlett petition. He then cites precedent that binds him, a decision of our own division, Chief Justice Rollins. At page 20 to 21 of Chief Justice Rollins, as he then was, his judgment in Quinn, Leandro, and Jonas, a case from 2010. And there, Chief Justice Hugh Rollins said this: in keeping with the strict approach, our courts have generally insisted that the provisions in elections legislation must be strictly complied with because the paramount public interest is that election petition challenges should be determined as quickly as possible so that the assembly and the electors should know their rights at the earliest possible time. The consistent result is that failure to comply is fatal to the petition, rendering it a nullity. The jurisprudence in our courts states that time and other electoral proceedings statutory requirements are conditions precedent to instituting a proper electoral challenge, which are mandatory and peremptory. The election court has no power to extend time or allow amendments to file out of time unless election legislation so provides. It was on the foregoing basis that the Dominica Election Court stated in Ferdinand Frampton and others, versus Ian Pinard and others, that a petitioner must file and perfect the petition within the time limited in the legislation for the presentation of the petition. The petitioner must enter security for cost in the manner and within the time prescribed. A petition must be served within the time prescribed. Those are the words of Chief Justice Hugh Rollins, as he then was, in the case of Quinn, Leandro, and Jonas. A learned judge in this case, Justice Thompson Jr., goes on at paragraph 22 to note that an imperfect petition is a nullity. At 23, he says, even if it were arguable that filing on the electronic portal for the court amounted to service, January 19th is not within 10 days after the petition was presented on January 6th. Therefore, even by their own documents, the notice of presentation of the Bartlett petition was not served in time. By the same token, the notice of Dr. Bartlett's security was filed on the electronic portal on January 13th, 2023, outside of the 3-day period prescribed for doing so. It is significant that January 9th to 13th were all weekdays, and as such it was open to Dr. Bartlett's lawyers to take every possible step to ensure that they had complied with the strict requirements of the Act and the rules. He goes on at paragraph 25. Dr. Bartlett's lawyers have not advanced any special circumstances or reasons to justify the exercise of any discretion in their client's favor. He then deals, of course, with the all-important issue of costs. At paragraph 34, the learned judge says this: on the issue of costs, the factual chronology is significant. The petitions were filed on January 6th and 10th, 2023. The Keynes petition was a nullity from the outset. The Keynes notice of presentation of petition and nature of security were filed on the portal on January 20th, 2023 at 3:38 p.m. The inescapable inference is that counsel for Ms. Keynes was only prompted to remedy the evident defaults when the strikeout applications came to their attention. The Bartlett position is difficult to understand. Counsel for Ms. Bartlett only conceded that the law was against him after the luncheon adjournment in the hearing of this matter. No recent authority was drawn to his attention which necessitated a sudden change of course. There was no evidence before the court as to why Mr. Patrice Nisbet's Damascene conversion came so late in the day. The obvious inference that can be drawn is Dr. Bartlett persisted in a position that her lawyers recognized was unsustainable as a matter of law. I believe that's worth repeating. The obvious inference that can be drawn is that Dr. Bartlett persisted in a position that her lawyers recognized was unsustainable as a matter of law. He then went on to cite the case from our own federation of Dr. Terence Drew and Eugene Hamilton, a case that arose out of the federal elections of 2020. And in that case, importantly, petitioners, Dr. Terence Drew, had belatedly withdrawn their petition. So they sought to withdraw the petition that they had filed before a trial of the petitions. They were nevertheless condemned in cost. And there we had a judgment of, I believe it was Mr. Justice Ward. And Mr. Justice Ward said there that a petitioner who contemplates presenting a petition must therefore be astute to ensure that they acquaint themselves with the strict requirements of the election law. It is by now notorious that fastidious compliance with time strictures for presenting and perfecting election petitions is an uncompromising requirement, the non-observance of which will render an election petition stillborn. It behooves a petitioner to fasten an eye on the clock when presenting a petition. And in the words of Mr. Justice Thompson Jr. in this case, at paragraph 37, he said, simply put, cause follow the event unless there are some special circumstances that justify the making of a different order. No special circumstances have been advanced before this court to justify departure from the usual order. As such, the order of the court is that the petitioner shall pay the cost of the respondents, such costs to be assessed if not agreed. I have taken some time, members of the press, to actually go to the decision because I recognize there's been a lot of chatter about this merely being procedure and we did not get to the substantive matter. You cannot get to a substantive matter in any case unless you have brought the correct procedure and you have brought yourself within the requirements of the law. And the difficulty here is that both Ms. J.D. Keynes and Dr. Patricia Bartlett brought petitions which were bad in law. You have heard the words nullity, for example, used. And that is a result of the case law. And the cases have been very clear that the statute sets out the period of time within which to bring a petition. 21 days, not 22, not 25, 21 days. And unless it is brought within the statutorily prescribed time, it is a nullity. The law is very clear on that. The law is also very clear that an election petition must have along with it something called a notice of presentation of petition, and that and the election petition must be served. That was not done in this case. There must also be within 3 days a recognizance, that is security. That too must be served. Again, that was not done in this case. What the lawyers there did, they uploaded it to the court's website and said that that ought to have been sufficient service. The court is saying no. The law again is very clear that you need physical service of these in order to perfect the petition. The judge also, of course, referred to the fact that both Ms. Keynes and Dr. Bartlett and their lawyers must have known that these defects were insurmountable. And yet they persisted. Yet they insisted and wasting the court's time, wasting money and resources, wasting the lawyers' time, that is lawyers for everyone else, and dragging all these people into the court. Mark Brantley, Oakland Peets, Calvin Foy, Rohan Claxton, the Electoral Commission, the Attorney General. Then in the one in town, Spencer Brand, Oakland Peets, Calvin Foy, Rohan Claxton, the Electoral Commission, the Attorney General. All of these parties were dragged into court on matters which were never properly filed and matters which were never properly before the court. And so the law is clear. In fact, one must wonder how these blunders occurred in the first place, because the law on these matters is crystal clear. And the judge has laid it out painstakingly. I have taken the press to some portion of the judgment. I'm advised the judgment is available on the website for the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and so all members of the public are asked to look at it and to peruse it for themselves. But clearly, this brings an end to an unfortunate saga of efforts to prolong the election cycle, which were ill-conceived and misconceived and have now been struck out, and those who brought them condemned to pay costs for wasting the court's time and wasting the time of everyone else. The decision in the Terrence Drew matter in St. Kitts is particularly instructive because there, the lawyers for Dr. Drew recognized the futility and sought to withdraw. And yet they were asked to pay costs. In Nevis, there was no withdrawal until the 11th hour. It was only in the court, late into the hearing of the matter, that Patrice Nisbet finally accepted that he had no legs to stand on, and therefore sought to concede in relation to the petition for Patricia Bartlett. In relation to the petition for J.D. Keynes, her lawyers fought to the bitter end, even though basic counting would have told them that they were outside the 21 days. And so whilst now the politics has taken over and people are saying all that they wish to say, these are the realities of the case, or should I say the cases that were brought to the court. And so these petitions were bad as a matter of law and could not proceed, could not continue. And as a consequence, they have been struck out. I do not yet know what the quantum of cost will be, but I can say that it is certainly my intention to collect every penny that is owed, and I believe that is a similar intention of Mr. Brand, because we have felt that we have been set upon unnecessarily. There was absolutely no issues of fairness or impropriety with these elections, and we could not understand why parties would contest an election, lose, and then proceed to make these types of allegations. And I would say, as I've said before, that when we looked at the petitions, despite what was being said in the public square about allegations of impropriety, the only thing that the petition that Dr. Bartlett brought against me said of me is that my name is Mark Brantley, that I was a candidate, and that I was declared the winner. The only thing that was said of Mr. Minister Brand was that his name is Spencer Brand, he was a candidate, and he was declared the winner. I say that to point out to the press that despite all the public posturing, there was not a single allegation made against either Mr. Brand or myself in the petitions that were filed. And so ultimately the petitions concerned themselves with allegations about objections that weren't heard and that kind of thing. And again, the law is very clear in relation to those matters. We need not to get into that at this point because the court has put these petitions where they belong and has relegated them to the scrap heap of history here on the island of Nevis. So we look forward now to the question of costs and obviously the collection of those costs, and I'm hopeful that the court will be generous in relation to the amounts involved. I will now take any questions that you may have, members of the press.
Good morning to all. Shamika Budgeon of One Radio.
Good morning, Ms. Budgeon.
Morning, Mr. Premier. Can we get an update on the Haitian immigrants? I think they arrived on island legally on February 1st via boat.
They arrived on island,
I think it was February 1st.
what was the word, legally or illegally?
Illegal.
Okay.
Also, were they asked about their journey upon arriving to the island?
And are there any plans to strengthen our waters as to security concerns? Question 2. Even though you mentioned a little bit about the cyber attack, what is the status on that right now? Can persons re-access the online payment portal, for example, the water department? Thank you. That's it for me for now.
Okay, on the cyber attack, let me start where you left off. Ms. Budgeon, I'm told that we've made good progress and that if we're not yet back up to full steam, we should be very shortly. I should have commended the team led by Craig David at the IT department for the excellent work that they have done in recovering much of the information. For example, we had initially been told that the census information for the new census, I don't know if the public is aware, but in Nevis we had essentially completed our census efforts and we're waiting on St. Kitts to finalize everything. That census information had been part of the hack, a part of the attack. The result of that was that the census information, I'm told that we've been able to recover that information. We had been very concerned that we would have lost it, which would have meant a considerable setback for us because we would have had to do it all over again. So I'm told that we have recovered that, that we are in good standing, and that we should be back up to speed. If we're not yet, then very shortly. That's the last report that I would have heard, so which would suggest to me that all of our services should be back up to speed. We've had to invest in new equipment. I believe we've had to buy some new hard drives. We've also now engaged with Microsoft. And let me go on record formally to thank some divisions who are talented divisions and who are in good position. Mr. Quincy Prentice, who used to head our IT department, he's now with the National Bank in St. Kitts, and he provided some support for us. And I also want to thank Mr. Dion Herbert and his wife, Mrs. Dawn Liebert Herbert. They're both well placed with Microsoft in the United States, and both of them also provided access to technical teams at Microsoft who lent their assistance to us. So Nivisions continue to play a role in our development and assisting us wherever they happen to be. And so we're very pleased to mention those because they were very involved with our local team in trying to resolve this issue. But I'm very proud of the response. We didn't panic. I think that the Craig David and his team are genius at what they do. And they really did an excellent job given the circumstances. I want to confirm that we paid no money to these terrorists who came and tried to hold us ransom. Well, let me not say terrorists, these criminals. Let me use that. We paid no money to them. And so we are hopeful that that will be a warning and that they don't come back and try to bother us again. In terms of the Haitian issue, I'm happy, Ms. Budgeon, that you've raised the question because I think the issue of Haiti is one that is not attracting sufficient attention from those of us who find ourselves in leadership positions across the region and indeed across the world. By all accounts, the situation in Haiti has deteriorated badly. And the suggestion now is that armed gangs are in control of most of Haiti. To the north, to the south, and even in the center, I'm told, are largely controlled by armed criminal gangs. The government, therefore, there has lost much of the control of the territory of Haiti, and the institutions naturally will suffer as a result. I recognize that at CARICOM recent meeting in the Bahamas that Haiti did occupy some time on the agenda, and I welcome that. And I say that as a Premier of Nevis and as a federal representative on the opposition benches federally, that it is important that we as a region pay close, critical, and urgent attention to the situation in Haiti. Many of us don't know or don't appreciate that the country of Haiti has over 11 million people. I want that to percolate in your brains for a moment. Haiti has over 11 million people. Jamaica, which is considered a big CARICOM country, has less than 3 million people. Trinidad, a big CARICOM country, has less than 2 million people. And those are the two most populous CARICOM members besides Haiti. It therefore means that Haiti alone has more than double the population of all the rest of CARICOM combined. Why is that relevant? It's relevant because the 15 persons who showed up here in Nevis are, in my humble view, a speck. They're not even the tip of the iceberg. They are just a drop of water on that iceberg in terms of what could become a flood. And as I indicated in another forum, I said that if even 10% of the population of Haiti were to seek to flee Haiti because of the deteriorating security circumstances there, then we in our region can potentially see well over 1 million persons moving in the region. I shudder to think, members of the press, how a small island like Nevis or a small country like St. Kitts and Nevis, a microstate, will be able to cope with even an influx of, say, 10,000 people. Think about it. Our schools, our health sector, our housing sector, our social services. We have had, for example, since this boat came ashore here in Nevis, 13 or so brothers and sisters from Haiti being housed at the community center in Hanley's Road. And we've had, of course, to feed them and to take care of them. The cost keeps escalating daily. And that's only 13 people. And so I feel that there is a clear and present danger that if the situation in Haiti is not addressed, and Haitians, like people the world over, decide to move, that's what we have seen in Syria. We have seen it in parts of Africa. We've seen it everywhere in the world. Where there's crisis, people seek safety. People flee. And if that happens, we have the potential for millions of persons to be seeking to flee Haiti and find comfort and find support someplace else. Now, this is what makes this particular case so fascinating, because we are told that a young lawyer has moved the court and has obtained an injunction to prevent the government from repatriating these Haitians back to Haiti. And that the matter now is set to be heard on the 6th of March. We are told that the 13 Haitians, that they will be moved to St. Kitts from Nevis and will be maintained over there until the hearing on the 6th of March. So what has been obtained is what we call an ex parte injunction. So the lawyer would have gone to the judge, explained the situation to the judge, and obtained an injunction to stop the government from repatriating them to Haiti. The arguments, as I understand them, are, one, Haiti is a dangerous place in a dangerous situation. And to send these individuals back there is to send them into danger. And so there's an application for asylum for these 13 individuals. Separate to that, there's an argument that Haiti, as a member of CARICOM and is signatory to the Treaty of Chaguaramas, is it called? That Haiti, therefore, is entitled to free access. Haitians, I'm sorry, are entitled to free access without visa or other such requirements. I'm told currently that all of CARICOM require visas for Haitians to enter, with the exception of Barbados and Dominica. And I remember when Prime Minister Mia Mottley took over, she made heavy weather of the fact that it was improper and in breach of the treaty to have Haitians requiring a visa to enter Barbados. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have still continued to require Haitians to have a visa. I'm told in Dominica they do not require a visa. So that is the second point that I'm told that has been raised, that these individuals were entitled as of right to have a minimum of 6 months stay once they arrived here. It will be a matter for the court, but the reason why I think this case is such an important case to watch is because if the court were to rule that yes, these individuals, once they arrive here, are entitled either to asylum or are entitled to stay here based on their CARICOM status or for whatever other reason, it potentially can send a message to others that, listen, once you come, you will be welcomed and accepted. I recall that at some point in the past there was a policy that the United States had that once Cubans set foot on U.S. soil, that they were automatically allowed to stay in the United States. And what that led to was Cubans, of course, who sought to use whatever means available to get to the United States, because once they got to the U.S., they were granted some form of asylum or other ability to stay in the United States. And I think, therefore, that this situation here warrants careful attention from the press, careful attention from us in the public. I hear the argument being made, and I understand the sentiment behind that argument, that these are our brothers and sisters, these are Caribbean people. In large measure, these are black people like us, and we therefore should welcome them with open arms. But we live in a community where month after month I come here and the press challenges me, as they should, on issues as to whether we're doing enough, whether the resources that we've allocated to this or that are adequate. And we're in a constant situation in these islands of not having enough resources to provide for who we have here already. And so the question that comes is whether or not, as I say, with even a moderate number of individuals flowing into St. Kitts and Nevis, can we manage it? Or will it lead to instability and difficulty? These are not, in some cases, people who are coming with money to invest, to buy homes, and to set themselves up. These are individuals who are fleeing a bad situation and are therefore coming looking for an opportunity. So do we have the jobs to provide? Do we have the housing to host? Do we have the schools and the space in our schools to send them to school? Can we deal with any health issues that would arise with a large influx of individuals at one time? And will our society, as a society, be open enough to say that this is something that we ought to do? I think these are all very important questions, because if we were to see a large influx of individuals overnight, it means that we could run the risk of seeing some instability occurring right here. It also, of course, is relevant that a vast majority of persons who have come do not speak English, and we do not speak French here. And so that compounds the problem of communication and how people can interact with each other. It doesn't give me any comfort to say these things. I just feel that these are important issues. And I've heard more said, for example, about the war in Ukraine, which is far removed from us. than I've heard about the situation in Haiti, which is on our doorstep. And I feel that these are important issues, and that the 13 persons that have showed up here, they're not the first group. You would recall that some time ago we had a larger group that had come, and those were eventually repatriated. But there is some cogency and some moral authority in the argument that to send people into a situation which we know to be dangerous is a difficult decision to arrive at. And so for our government to repatriate Haitians back to Haiti, where all reports are that the situation is volatile and dangerous, we understand the moral weight of that type of argument, that we ought not to do so. But there's a practical argument on the other side. Do you open the floodgates? And that's the reason why I made a reference to the population size of Haiti. Do you open the floodgates? Not even Jamaica, a vast country compared to us, will be able to handle that type of population if indeed Haitians were to start to move and to seek safety, succor, and comfort outside Haiti. And so I feel that this is a very serious matter. I really would welcome a national debate here in St. Kitts and Nevis on this matter. We recognize that we owe Haiti a debt of gratitude for its role in becoming the first independent black republic in the hemisphere and showing us how it could be done, shaking off the shackles of slavery. And so there are lessons to be learned from Haiti. But tragically, the country of Haiti now finds itself in a very difficult situation. And the people, as a result, are seeking comfort elsewhere. And we hear about refugee crises in other parts of the world. Can we in CARICOM, can we in the Caribbean, many of us, particularly in the OECS, are microstates. Can we handle? Sentiment is one thing. Practical reality is something else. And so can we handle a flotilla of boats descending on the coastline of St. Kitts Nevis, carrying people who are desperate for some relief from the bad situation at home? What do we do? And so I really would welcome a national debate on this matter. I believe that that would be of critical importance. The issue about our borders and security, I think I've mentioned in the past that I'm advised that this year we're trying to do a few things here on Nevis. We're trying to set up a Coast Guard base and set up an Army base. They will share that base. And we're also discussing the setting up of radar facilities, one on St. Kitts and one on Nevis, to assist us in better monitoring our coastline and ensuring greater border security for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So I look forward certainly to the implementation of those strategies which have been discussed. Are there any more questions for me?
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Elke Hewlett, Department of Information. I just would like to, in terms of the Haitian immigrants, wouldn't the argument about the access allowed under the CARICOM agreement pertain to persons entering legally, which would be a matter now for immigration? Also, can we get an update on the geothermal project? I know you said there was some bidding, it was open for bidding. And we also have two questions from Devon Cornelius at WinFM. He asks, what caused the discrepancy in figures for the amount spent on the Alexandra Hospital expansion project, and what steps are being taken to determine the exact amount? His second question, has any monies been dispersed from the NIA for the Office of the Leader of the Opposition for the months of January and February, and going forward, who will occupy that office? I repeat, those last two questions are from Devon Cornelius at WinFM. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Hewlett. The point you make about whether or not the treaty commitments, if they do exist, apply to persons who have entered illegally, I think is a good point. I would not want to preempt what the court may wish to determine. Of course, the matter is before the court. But I think that's a legal argument, no doubt, that would occupy some attention as to whether or not persons who enter into a country illegally can then claim to have any rights under the relevant treaty, CARICOM treaty requirements. So I leave that. The court will have to determine that. Geothermal bidding, the bidding that I'm advised about is the drilling. And I'm told that we've had interest. So far, I'm told over 30 companies have put in bids or have shown interest. And as a result, the bidding process was extended to March 9th. And so after March 9th, we would expect a decision to be taken, and then we move forward. I've been in touch with the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Terence Drew, and he has assured me that all that was necessary to be done on the federal level in terms of the grant funding, that documentation has been settled and finalized and returned to the CDB. And so I look forward, therefore, to this project moving forward rapidly.
Will that be the signing of the agreement for the 17?
Yes, the funding arrangements. Well, clearly as the Premier of Nevis will have signed on. We were waiting on St. Kitts, and he has indicated that what has been done, what was necessary has been done, and so we expect that we therefore will see that program moving forward aggressively as we try now to get the promise of geothermal realized here in the Federation for the benefit of not only Nevis, but also, of course, for our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts as well. Win FM, you say, young Cornelius has asked about the Alexandra Hospital discrepancy in figures. I did explain that when I spoke at the Nevis Island Assembly in our budget debates, that there appears to have been some error on the part of both ministers, I'm told. That is, the former minister, Hazel Brandy Williams, would have given some figures when she spoke in the last budget, I believe it was in 2021. And our new Minister of Health, the Honorable Janet Nisbet, would have given a different figure when she spoke on the recently concluded budget address. I have apologize, and I do so again, because we are a government that prides ourselves in giving accurate information. But I also say that those who now criticize must also recognize how government functions. I, for example, come here before you all the time and give numbers and statistics that I have not myself verified. What I say that to say is that I am handed numbers and statistics by technocrats, whether they be in the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Agriculture, or elsewhere. And we as ministers rely on what we are given. And so clearly, numbers would have been given which have turned out to be incorrect. And I'm told that both numbers were incorrect. I have asked for full report on the matter just this morning because I anticipated that this question would come. I had an exchange with Minister Janet Nisbet, and she said that they are working to put every penny that was spent together so that we would have an accurate tally to share with the public. We were unfortunately delayed in doing that because, again, of the cyber attack. And they're telling me that they had to go to manual receipts and manual documents in order to tally this total. And so we have that differential that still exists. I have given my commitment in the House, and I now give my commitment here, that as soon as we have the accurate figure, we'll bring that figure to the public. It appears, based on what I gathered, that the numbers that were given by the former Minister of Health, there was apparently a scrivener's error. And what should have been 600,000 was written down as 6 million, which clearly led to a distortion of that figure. And then in relation to the figure that was given by our new minister, I'm told that some amounts were left out of that figure. And so both numbers were wrong, and I have apologized. I do so again now, and I give the commitment that we will come with the appropriate figure once that number is in hand. I would not wish to come and hazard any guesses and to give any further figure which turns out to be inaccurate. So please bear with me. Mr. Cornelius, you will have that figure shortly. In relation to the leader of the opposition, I believe Mr. Cornelius, in his other dispensation, is an active member of the Nevis Reformation Party. I'm not sure what he's asking me, because these are not things that I have any control over. The NRP has the distinct, how should I say? Let me just say they have the distinction, let me use that, of winning 2 seats in the election of December 12th and losing one of those 2 seats almost immediately after. They're the only party I know that has lost a seat without an election. Because they had 2 seats, one would have expected that they would have therefore appointed a leader of the opposition, and that leader of the opposition would therefore have appointed a senator, and we would have settled down and got on with business. Instead of that, they have disintegrated into infighting, and we saw in the House some comments which were clearly made in the House but intended to reach their particular target, comments about leadership, the lack thereof. And there's a crisis within the NRP. But that is for Mr. Cornelius and his team to work out. That has nothing to do with me. So he should know that there's no leader of the opposition. In fact, there has been no leader of the opposition since 2017. Because under the Constitution, the leader of the opposition is that individual who must command the support of at least one other member from those who are not supporting the government. And so in 2017, the Honorable Joseph Parry was the only member of the NRP who won a seat. And when he decided to leave and handed matters over to the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons, who won the by-election, if you recall, she became the only NRP member in the parliament. What this government did, again as part of its commitment to good governance, it said that notwithstanding there was no leader of the opposition, and therefore there could be no office for the leader of the opposition, we nevertheless allocated funding for an office for the opposition. That is, the formal opposition. And you will recall that there was some to-ing and fro-ing because the NRP opted to have an office somewhere over at Cades Bay. Is it Cades Bay? What's that area called? I believe it's the Cades Bay area. They decided to have an office over there, which we learned was being used as a party headquarters as well. And we said no. CCM has no party headquarters that is being paid for by taxpayers. And so it was improper to take government money for an office for the opposition and to have it being used as an office for the party that is in opposition. And so what this government did was we secured space in Charlestown, I'm told. We furnished that space, and as far as I know, we're still paying the rent, we're still paying staff, and we will continue to do so for that space. Now, if it is that because of the infighting and because the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons has now been ejected from the NRP and has apparently accepted it because she said in the House that she was appearing as an independent. We now have an independent who's in opposition, and we now have a sole member of the NRP who's in opposition. Who's going to occupy the office that was put there for the opposition? Should they both do so? Should one or the other do so? Or should the government just say, well, listen, you're all in confusion, so we're going to pull the funding and close down the office? Because bear in mind that the office was only put there in the first place because we as a government said there should be an office for the opposition. For example, from time to time, dignitaries come to visit, ambassadors and the like, and they want to speak to the opposition. And we felt it was appropriate, notwithstanding that there was no individual who qualified to be leader of the opposition, that there should be an office where the opposition member of parliament could conduct his or her business. But what we have now, we have two people in opposition, but they're not together. One is an independent, one is NRP. So who's to control that? So I wish Mr. Cornelius was here because he might be better able to answer the question than me. So he must know when he goes into his executive meetings that these are problems that they must resolve because the government is being put in an invidious position as to what to be done. We would like to have the office available to the opposition. The question is, who is the opposition? And who, therefore, is to control this office? And who, therefore, should the taxpayers of the country be spending money on to secure an office with staff and chair and furniture and equipment and all of that? Electricity and water and telephone and all of that. Now, if Ms. Stapleton Simmons says, I represent the people of St. Thomas's, I won by over 200 votes, I am a second-time winner, parliamentarian, I'm the best person to be in that office. Okay? Dr. Janice Hodge, well, I win by 8. I am the leader of the party, and I am the best person to be in that office. I represent the people of St. James. What is the government supposed to do? That is why when I've said that these newcomers have brought chaos into the political process here, it is because it is true. And these now are the situations now that we as a government must contend with simply because they have decided that fighting among themselves is preferable to serving the people who elected them to serve. And therein lies the problem. So I don't quite know, Mr. Cornelius, how to answer your questions, except I've tried to do the best that I could. Any other questions for me?
Ms. Budget, once again, of On Radio. Mr. Premier, persons within the Nivision community are mumbling about seeing a lot of new faces on the island. I don't know if you have as well. How do we know that these people are here legally? I think the question really is, are the police, the customs, the immigration, are they visiting various places to check to see if these people are here legally? That's it for me. Thanks.
Ms. Budget, I'm always curious when you say persons are mumbling. I haven't heard anybody mumble to me. In fact, I haven't heard somebody mumbling in a long time. So when you say persons are mumbling, I'm curious as to who these persons might be. I have had no reports of persons, new faces, as you put it, on the island. Certainly, we have to recognize that Nevis is no longer the homogeneous community that it used to be, and that we now have a significant population here of individuals who have come from other places. We have large numbers of Guyanese, for example, people from Guyanese extract. We now have a growing Jamaican population. We have large numbers of individuals who have come back home, many of them, descendants of Nivisians who went to the Dominican Republic, so they're now here with us. We have people from Dominica. We have people from Haiti. There's large and growing blocks of people who are here. And then, of course, we have Caucasians who have come from America and everywhere else who are here as well. Nevis is now becoming a melting pot. So when you say that there are new faces, I have no doubt that from time to time there will be new faces because people come to visit, people come to spend holidays. Some are coming in to work, and I would hope that if they're coming in to stay and to work, they've gone through the proper process. But we have had no reports formally as government that there are any difficulties, whether from the police or immigration or anyone else. Certainly, I believe it is in everybody's interest to ensure that those who are on the island are here legally and are operating within the bounds of the laws of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I would encourage our own people who might be out there, if they are aware of individuals who might be here illegally, to make the necessary report to the police. We as a government have had an approach because we recognize that Nevis needs people. And so we've had an approach where we've said that wherever possible, we've allowed people the opportunity to regularize their status. So we've granted various amnesties and various approaches such as that to allow, because for the most part they are Caribbean brothers and sisters, to allow them to regularize their status. Many of them who have been here, who have not paid for a work permit, who have not paid for their residency, we said, you know what, come in. Rather than trying to exist under the radar and living here illegally, come in, regularize yourself, get your stamp in your passport. And we've granted, as I said, I believe now, maybe 3 or 4 different occasions, we've granted amnesty. So we've encouraged people to come in and to get themselves regularized. The upshot of that, of course, is that those who have not chosen to regularize themselves, the interpretation we have of that is certainly they are committed to living a life outside the law. And when you commit to living a life illegally, then the consequences that flow to you, you have no one to blame for those consequences. Because as a government, we have stated ours is an inclusive one, where we try to assist as much as we possibly can. So, again, we have had no reports, but certainly I would hope that members of the community out there would respond in a negative way if we were to have people residing and operating here illegally. And I use this rostrum to appeal to non-nationals who might be here. Please come in. Come into the Premier's ministry and regularize yourself. We have an approach that allows you to do that, and we prefer that you do that than to run yourself into difficulty where you end up being deported from here because you have chosen not to bring yourself in line with the requirements of our law. Are there any other questions for me?
Good morning, Premier Brantley.
Good morning.
Glenn Bart, SKN Newsline. If I could ask you to revisit the question of Haiti one more time. If Haiti were to descend further into anarchy and people began to move out of that country, what are the security implications for small island states such as St. Kitts and Nevis, in your opinion? What could we expect to happen if people would start moving into our country from Haiti? On the issue of the economy, you have said time and time again that diversifying the economy of Nevis is very important for Nevis's future. Now, outside of agriculture, which we have indicated have made some strides, outside of the movie industry, which is pretty new to Nevis and to the country as a whole, what are the other areas that you are most interested in terms of having Nevis go down a pathway of diversification? And my third question relates to tourism, but in the context of education and training. Now, Nevis is well known for its high-end branding, and it is often said that if you do not adjust, if you do not keep moving forward, you run the risk of losing your status. So I want to know what part does education and tourism, education and training will play in Nevis's future high-end tourism industry or its high-end brand? What is your perspective on those things? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bart. Starting with your question on Haiti, if the situation there were to deteriorate further and people started to move, what security implications you anticipate that would have. And that is why I said what I said at the outset, why I believe an urgent national conversation is necessary. And beyond that, an urgent regional conversation is necessary. Because if even a small percentage of our brothers and sisters in Haiti were to start to move, then I think that the implications for us could be very serious. I think that the potential lies for us to have tremendous instability in St. Kitts and Nevis, microstates, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, for example, because we are talking about vast numbers of people compared to what we are accustomed to and what our infrastructure, and when I say infrastructure, I mean physical and social infrastructure, is designed to accommodate. And that's why I use the example, if only 10,000 people were to descend on Nevis, you realize that that would double our population overnight. How do we cope? Where are they going to sleep? How does the government to deal with that? Do we have the capacity as an island to provide sustenance for 10,000 people? Small children, elderly people, pregnant women, people who have some type of disability. These are some hard, difficult questions. I'm not saying I have the answer. But what I'm saying is I think that we need at least to have this as an urgent priority for discussion in our country as to what our response is likely to be. Do we say, for example, we can take this number but no more? Do we know what our capacity is in St. Kitts and Nevis? Because we have never faced this type of situation before. We have others in the region. Trinidad, for example, cried out when the difficulties erupted in Venezuela. Many Venezuelans fled to Trinidad because of the proximity. Bahamas has time and time again complained that they have a crisis because so many Haitians flock to the Bahamas, especially the outer islands. My colleagues in the Bahamas tell me sometimes their Coast Guard visit some of the Bahamas, remember, is a chain of 700 islands. So then they reach some of the outer islands, and the islands are inhabited because Haitians have arrived and inhabited those islands. So you have actual communities that have developed on some of these islands. People are people, wherever we go in the world. People want safety. They want security. They want to be able to live and not to be in fear. Whether they're white, black, Asian, it doesn't matter. And we have seen over the years, time and time again, what happens when there's instability. There is war, there's violence, people flee. That is why I'm saying the situation in Haiti poses a clear and present danger to us all in the region. If the United States makes it more difficult for them to get to the U.S., then they're likely to turn their attention southward to their CARICOM brothers and sisters. Can we handle it? That really is where the rubber meets the road. So putting aside the very powerful moral arguments that we ought to reach out and provide solace and comfort to our brothers and sisters in Haiti. The question is, can we handle it as a practical matter if we have large numbers of people coming in? And so the point you make about security is really, that's where the rubber meets the road. Because if people are coming in large enough numbers, it must lead to insecurity. It must lead to instability. We can be overwhelmed. When we hear the great United States of America, the richest nation the world has ever known, being brought to its knees by the force of immigrants, illegal immigrants, a wave that keeps coming across the border or trying to come across the border. They've been setting up the camps to host them. And then you hear questions being asked about the conditions in which people are being hosted. We saw that some illegal immigrants, I don't know if you saw the news item, but some of them arrived into New York on buses because it appears that Republican governors are putting them on buses and saying, okay, go to Democratic states. Since they say they want you all, go. So they show up at Martha's Vineyard. They show up in New York City. And then you hear now that the mayor of New York and the government in New York are saying, the state of New York, we have to find housing. We have to repurpose certain places for them to live. But those are countries with vast resources, and even they are saying they can't handle it. So what would happen to us here? Once all of our community centers are filled, what then? Where are people going to live? Because people have basic needs. Shelter, clothing, food. Can our sanitation system handle an influx of several thousand people at once? Because we not to remember talking about migration over time. Managed migration allows over time for you to put things in place. Countries like Singapore and those countries, they will tell you that in 10 years they need 1.5 million people because they anticipate growth and they manage that. Here we're talking about people who are fleeing a bad situation at home. And I'm saying, Mr. Bart, that you asked a very important question about security risks. We don't even know who the people are that are coming. Suppose among them you have criminals, people who have committed terrible crimes. That is always the danger. Remember, if Mr. Bart, I think you and I are both old enough to know that there was this Mariel boat lift, if you recall, from Cuba. So the US government said all who want to come from Cuba can come. This was an effort by America to destabilize Cuba. They said Fidel Castro cleaned out all his jails, all his asylum. So he sent all the criminals and all the people with mental challenges, he put them on boats. Says America say, want you all. Go America. And so America ended up with people there. I don't know, I know we shouldn't be using, how should I say, storytelling to tell our stories. But one of my favorite movies is called Scarface with Al Pacino. And that was an example of criminals who were sent from prison in Cuba to the United States because Castro cleaned out his jails and sent them to America. Truth is that when you have these refugee situations, I'm trying not to use that word, but when you have situations where people are fleeing, you don't know who you're going to get. You don't know. And that really is the danger. So I believe that you've put it on the footing of security. I think it can potentially cause grave instability in these islands. And that's why, again, I reiterate the call that we need an urgent national and regional discussion on this matter. The economy, yes, we are still trying to diversify, Mr. Bart. I think we've had some, how should I say, cautious success, and we're cautiously optimistic. Social Security numbers tell us that our jobs grew by 6.4% over 2021 into 2022. Our salaries in Nevis, our gross monthly salaries grew by some 11.9% over that same period. In Nevis, we were accustomed to just over $17 million a month in salaries that grew to just over $19 million a month. And those numbers compare very favorably even with our sisters and Kitts in terms of what we've been doing over here. You're right, you mentioned agriculture, our movie industry, as we're trying to diversify. But we've also heard geothermal mentioned, because renewable energy is part of that diversification. Financial services is also part of that diversification effort that we're seeking to achieve. And we have, Mr. Bart, just concluded an arrangement for a new call center operation in Nevis, which we hope is going to generate, we're told, up to 325 jobs, starting initially with 50 and then growing. So we're optimistic that we are moving in the right direction. It is incremental, but we're moving in the right direction in terms of job creation and creating some jobs which are not directly in the tourism industry. And so that is the plan, and that is the plan that we continue to execute. I will invite you again, as I've invited others, to go and visit our orchard at Indian Castle, 35 acres where we've planted some almost 5,000 coconut palms there. It's really coming along nicely. And I would like members of the press to look at it, because for me it's a good example of what can happen as we try to recalling that that orchard was a direct response to COVID and our efforts to say, no, we cannot be so reliant on foreign food coming in. So we have all kinds of fruit trees there, but I'm very impressed, and I want to again go on record to commend the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, because this was his brainchild. He had the support of the cabinet, and we have there a young man called Ronald Banky King, who has really done a phenomenal job. And so really I would like members of the press to go and visit and see it for yourselves. You hit the nail on the head when you asked about education and training in tourism. That is why I started by saying that we're now offering a scholarship for somebody in the culinary arts to go away for 10 weeks to refine and get their skill set up. We cannot, and I believe we must come to that realization, have a sustainable tourism industry unless our people have been trained to command the heights in that industry. It is one of my greatest regrets that we have had some institutions in our country for a very long time, and everybody who is anybody in those institutions is still foreign. I have nothing against people coming in from outside, but that tells me that we have not equipped our own people to take on those roles. And so I really want to see more of our people saying, listen, I want to be a chef. Not just a chef like me, who know how to do cook-up and fried chicken, and that's the extent of my ability, but a real chef that, you know, people who are trained, people who can go into any fine dining establishment, who know how to cook French food and Italian food and West Indian food and every other kind of food that these types of high-end establishments would offer. We need to start to see ourselves in those ways and be able to move in that particular direction, and that can only come through training. So we need now to start to get training. In fact, I was told that even some of the tourism training that is being offered in the region is still largely theoretical and not fit for purpose. I think the region now, and I think this is where institutions such as the University of the Virgin Islands, University of the West Indies, they need tailor-made training for our people. So when our people leave with that degree, they could go into a Four Seasons or Park Hyatt and fit in right away in the middle and upper echelons of those organizations. Because I will tell you, a lot of the people who have even ascended in terms of from Nevis who have gone elsewhere, take with the Four Seasons, in large measure they've been trained in-house. Because Four Seasons has its own training program. So I have a good friend, for example, Curtis, who's a chef from Craddock Road originally. And I believe the last I heard he was in the Bahamas as the executive chef there. But they largely would have gone through an apprenticeship and training, on-the-job training kind of thing. That's good. But I think we as governments need to also, if we see this as a significant part, because even as I talk about diversification, we have to be realistic that tourism will and must continue to play a critical role in our economy. So it's not like we're abandoning tourism. So if we're going to stick with tourism and stick with this high-end tourism that we're talking about, we need to put things in place. We're talking about a marina development at Tamarind Cove, now called Nautilus, by the Seabridge. And the owners tell me that they were to start construction this week. I'm hopeful that they are able to do so. But that, again, is a whole new aspect of tourism, for which, again, our people need to be trained. Cleaning boats, servicing boats, providing all that the boats require. All these are new skills. And so we have to be careful that we don't build industries here that really are only providing jobs for people who are coming in from outside. And so I understand entirely what you're saying. We have long talked about an academy of some kind, hospitality, training of some kind in St. Kitts and Nevis. There was some proposal, I remember at one point, to use a facility on St. Kitts. We have looked at the Old Manor Hotel in Nevis as an option, but it has to be done. We have to have a system where we can generate people who are trained and ready for the sector. And not as we have now, where young people are simply being hired by hotels and then the hotel provides some basic training for them. I think we need to do more than that. We need to go beyond that now. Because the danger of that is every time a good position arises, they send for somebody from overseas. And you see some American or some Swedish or somebody comes from someplace else and comes in here. I'll give you a practical example even in terms of massage therapy and spa, things like that. I remember at one point we brought in a tonload of people from Indonesia and places such as those. I don't think there's any characteristic that an Indonesian has that makes them better at giving a massage than somebody here. It's just that clearly at some point in those countries, those governments took the initiative to have people trained and certified. And so we started a program here, and I was quite proud that a lot of our local people became certified here and are able, therefore, to now be working in the spas and things like that. So we must guard against, because where these hotels and things are concerned, they want the service. So wherever they find the person to cook the food or whatever, they bring them. So we must guard against that, but you can't guard against that unless you have local people. So when I was Premier of Nevis, they tell me, I'm bringing in a chef. I say, wait, hold on a minute. You don't need a pastry chef from Paris, because you have excellent trained pastry chefs here that you can use. Absent that, we can't put up that level of resistance. So I think the point you make is excellent, and that's where we need to ensure that our education system is catering to our developmental plan. And so I entirely agree with you that that is an area in which we need to move. Is there anything further for me, members of the press?
This is supporting Manda track.
I don't know if I could hear you, Mr. Bart, so you might, because people are listening, so.
Yeah, it's just the athletic facilities here on Nevis,
Yes.
the Manda track. It has been quite some years now that it has been there and been serving the communities. Any plans to build a pavilion, any of the supporting infrastructure?
Okay. So we have a proposal to do some supporting infrastructure this year, in large measure because we anticipate that there will be high usage during the so-called sports season. There are a number now of, and in fact I should commend that, because there are a number now of inter-island events. What that Mondo track has done for us is that it has allowed Nevis now to co-host some of these events, so that we're not forced now to just go to the Kim Collins Stadium in St. Kitts. It's like having multiple cricket grounds. You can play different grounds. Or multiple golf courses. You can play different courses. Here we have the Kim Collins Stadium and we have the Mondo track. So some meets, because of the collaboration between St. Kitts and Nevis, are being done in St. Kitts, and some meets are being done in Nevis. So that's a good thing. The amenities to ensure that we have the stands and all of those, covered stands. This is something that we're working on. I'm advised by the Minister of Education, the Honorable Troy Leiber, that he should be bringing something to the Cabinet tomorrow in relation to some construction that we want to do here in Nevis. In terms of the actual stadium, to build out that stadium to clearly regional and international standards, we simply don't have the resources yet to do that. And we have had to make some decisions as to what we do with the resources for this year. And the Cabinet was of one voice that all the resources that we have available should go into the completion of the hospital. So that really has become our primary priority for 2023. And so that is where we are. We don't have the resources to do it at this point, but it is something that we are committed to do it eventually. But in the meantime, we'll put things in place so that persons can be more comfortable when they go there and they attend that facility. But the track itself is working. And I know people don't like to hear it when I say it sometimes, that is those who are in opposition. But we've now had, I think, 2 manifestations of that track doing its work. One was the Rams Inter-Primary Relay Championship that was won by the Charleston Primary School. And 2 is the Ginseng Up Classic that was just won by the CSS. And Mr. Bart, I make the case because prior to that track, the athletes in Nevis were running on dirt and grass. And I always used to say it must have been difficult for them to transition from that to going to Kim Collins to run on a proper surface and having to compete with their peers in St. Kitts who are accustomed to running on a proper surface. Well, we have now equalized the scale because they now have a first-class facility here that they can use to train. And I believe we are now seeing the results of that in terms of the performances that they can produce, whether they're running on Kim Collins or they're running here at the Mondo track. So for me, it is an investment that was worthwhile, an investment that is already paying dividends. And notwithstanding the complaints about not having a covered stand, I think that the investment in the track itself has borne fruit. And now we can host events and the like, which I think is a welcome development. So thank you for your questions. Is there anything further for me? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. We are ending right before midday, so it's a good time. And I want to just say thank you to all who came, for those who listened and were tuned in. Let me also add again that today is a day of prayer. And so as we leave here, I'm hopeful that you'll take some time to go to one of the churches to spend a few minutes with God, and that tonight you will come to the New Testament Church of God in Bath, where there is a formal ceremony starting at 7 p.m. And so let us thank God for all that he has done and continues to do for us. Thank you very much. God bless you.